Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 3, Chapter 15 of Memories of Ice, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review. It's most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Both Kamraun and I know that this series is the best fantasy story ever written, and we're just approaching this from a purely fanboy point of view. No critique from Mr. Erikson's side, at least.
We'll be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that haven't read the books. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
A quick warning, today's episode contains descriptions of adult topics not suitable for children.
That was pretty sweet and to the point this week.
Yeah.
Again. Our show is listener-supported. If you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate it. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at HorseFrogProductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we would really like to hear from you, and we really do mean that. So send any feedback or comments that you've got to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. A real quick back, I love the quick warning for today's episode. That's always a perfect disclaimer.
It is.
That covers a wide variety of sins, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no other way to dial that in.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
All right, Chapter 15, Part 2. We pick up the chapter immediately following Brood's uncharacteristic loss of self-control after being goaded by Krupp. The Mib's eyes snapped open. The wagon rocked and pitched. Thunder shook the ground. The Reeve shouted on all sides. Her bones and muscles protested as she was thrown about in the cataclysm, but she would not cry out. She wanted only to hide. The rumbling faded. The veteran herd was close to panic, and a stampede was imminent. The Mib thought, bringing ruin to us all. Yet that would be a mercy, an end to the pain, to my nightmares. In her dreams, she was young once more, but those dreams held no joy. Strangers walked the tundra landscape where she invariably found herself. They approached. She fled. Running, always running. Strangers, she did not know what they wanted, but they were seeking her, that much was clear. Tracking her, like hunters their quarry. To sleep was to awaken exhausted, limbs trembling, chest heaving with agonized breaths. She had been saved from the abyss, from those countless tattered souls lost in eternal desperate hunger, saved by a dragon. She thought, to what end? Leaving me in a place where I am hunted, pursued without surcease? Time passed, punctuated by the herder's calming words to the frightened veteran. There would be no stampede after all. Rumble still trembled through the earth, in diminishing ripples that grew ever farther apart. And that's pretty wild that there are still aftershocks from Brood slamming the ground with the hammer.
Well, you think about, I hear about this stuff I've been to California, but never during earthquake activity or that I was aware of. They talk about aftershocks weeks later from all this stuff. And you've lived in California, haven't you?
I have. Yeah, I grew up there.
So with that, do y'all get like a lot of aftershocks after a big boy?
It's hard to tell. I'm sure there are aftershocks. What you can actually feel versus what's measurable, I think, is the critical factor. I was there for the Northridge earthquake in the 90s, which was the big one that I recall. There was a couple other smaller ones.
Was that the one in 93?
I think so, yeah.
Right around there. That's where my late wife was. She lived there at that time and was pregnant with twins at that time.
That one was pretty jarring. But the aftershocks, you're always real nervous about them coming, and they were never, short of maybe feeling them once or twice, never serious.
Okay.
Certainly not as much as the initial earthquake that you felt.
Right. I'm just kind of curious if that, due to the fact that we just birthed a new mountain range here on these plains, I don't know if it's strange that we're still feeling aftershocks or not.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that they're continuing on. Granted, it seems like she was woken immediately after the hammer hitting the ground, so maybe this isn't as drawn out as I initially thought it to be.
Right.
Maybe what she's feeling is those mountains coming out of the ground or something.
Who knows? I'm curious. I'd like to see that on film, though.
Yeah, you could do something really cool with that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially afterwards when the crack starts filling with blood, and it's befouled blood.
Oh, yeah, real nasty, thick blood, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Mib moaned softly to herself as the wagon rocked once more, this time to the arrival of Call and Murillo. Call said, "You've awakened. It's no surprise." The Mib said, "Leave me be," drawing the hides around her shivering body and curling away from the two men. She thought, "It's so cold." Murillo addressed Call. "Any idea what's happened up ahead?" Call said, "Seems Brood lost his temper." Murillo exclaimed, "Gods! With whom? Calor? That bastard deserves..." Call growled, "Not Calor, friend. Make another guess. Shouldn't take you long." Murillo groaned, then said, Krupp. Call said, Hood knows he's stretched the patience of all of us at one time or another. Only none of us was capable of splitting apart half the world and throwing new mountains skyward. You know, I wonder how long the list of individuals would be if someone were to collect all the names in one place, all the people that he's ever pissed off or annoyed with his behavior.
How many Krupps ticked off? Oh,
yes.
I was sorry. I was thinking about maybe how much Brood is, how many times he's lost his temper. It's like not very many. I imagine how many people would make that list.
No, I'm thinking of Krupp.
Krupp, dude. You got a phone book a list on that one, don't you?
Like the thick 3-inch yellow
the
pages.
old school yellow pages, yeah. At Dallas, it's more like that Dallas or the Los Angeles local area, that directory,
You know, if there's anybody that's in Gen Z listening, they've probably never seen a phone book.
That's
when we were
true.
younger, before cell phones, they used to publish
Back
these
in my day.
massive phone books, and the paper was thin, just a 3-inch thick book of phone numbers. Granted, eventually they started putting advertisements for businesses in there and stuff, but I think that the yellow pages was the one that had the ads. The white pages was a little bit thinner, but it was just pure numbers.
White pages. White pages is all residential listings. It's people's residential listings alphabetically by name. That's how you found people's names before Google.
Mm-hmm. You know what's crazy? We used to be able to remember a ton of phone numbers too.
Yeah, what's funny, I still have the home phone number from my childhood is just branded in my brain. And my station number from where I grew up working for my dad for 25 years, that's burned in my brain. It's funny enough, it's my mother's new cell phone number. So I don't really dial the number anymore, but I've never forgot those. Other than that, everything else, I forgot so many now. I can't remember Fry's.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty easy. Oh, wait. 214-342-5000 and whatever extension you wanted to put on that 5000.
Now that you said it, I was like, yep, that was it. That's crazy. I couldn't think of it if you asked me to.
I think it's 342-5000 or 3000. I can't remember. So they're gone. We can give this number out. It's fine. They're gone.
Bonus points. Do you remember the extension for the audio video department?
5. Y'all, ADV was Department 5. So y'all were 50. Right? The 50s?
I don't remember.
Computers was 20. Softwares was 30. AV was 50. I don't know what 4. There was no 40s.
That 4. Wait, 4? I thought 4 was the appliances.
Oh, you're right. 4 would have been the appliances.
Then became cell phones.
It's so funny because I just saw a listing today or this week on one of the Fry's group that I'm a member of on Facebook, and somebody was just moving into the Fry's headquarters in California, and somebody who had taken a bunch of video that used to work for Fry's and was now going to be in this new company. This is our new place now because I love all this old Fry's memorabilia. It's kind of wild to see that it's truly the end. The end is there. We go.
Recently, I saw an article. They have the one by NASA in Houston. It was space themed, and there's a company that moved in there. This is really neat. They actually build modules for the space station. Oh, wow. So how fitting that they have a building that is themed after space that they now inhabit, and they're building stuff for the space station. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's so cool, dude. I think that's very cool.
All right, man, what a digression from...
Dude. And not even related to this, not even related to anything other than just like, wow, okay. Wow.
Oh, we took a couple jumps there from a phone book.
Woo. Yeah, phone book to Fry's, ladies and gentlemen. There you go.
All right.
Only on the HorseFrog podcast.
Murillo said, did the little runt get himself killed? I can't believe. Call interrupted. Word is he's come out unscathed. Typically. Complaining of the dust. No one else was injured either, though the warlord himself almost got his head kicked in by an angry mule. Murillo asked, Krupp's mule? The one that sleeps when it walks? Call said, aye, the very one. The Mibe thought, sleeps. Dreams of being a horse, no doubt. Magnificent, tall, fierce. Murillo said, that beast is a strange one indeed. Never seen a mule so watchful of everything. Queen of Dreams, that's the oddest looking range of mountains I've ever seen. Call said, aye, Murillo. It does look bigger than it really is. Twists the eye. A broken spine, like something you'd see at the very horizon. Yet there it is, not half a league from us. Doesn't bear thinking about, if you ask me. The Mibe thought, nothing bears thinking about. Not mountains, not mules, not Brood's temper. Souls crowd my daughter, there within her. 2 women, and a Thelaman named Skullcrusher. 2 women and a man whom I've never met. Yet I carry that child within me. I, a Reeve, young, in the bloom of my life, drawn into a dream, then the dream made real. Yet where, within my daughter, am I? Where's the blood, the heart of the Reeve? She has nothing of me, nothing at all. Not but a vessel in truth, that is all I was. A vessel to hold, then birth into the world a stranger. She has no reason to see me, to visit, to take my hand and offer me comfort. My purpose is done, over, and here I lie, a discarded thing. Forgotten, a Maib. A hand settled gently on her shoulder. This begs the question of how nature over nurture would impact the development of someone in a world where people can be resurrected. You would think that being raised among the Reeve would have had at least a small influence on Silver Fox. Granted, the accelerated timeline of her growth did not allow for much time to influence her.
Yeah, and I agree with that because what are we talking about here? Less than a year, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking it's like 6 months.
Yeah, because to me, roughly, these books kind of encompass a year apiece, but sometimes there's overlappage, as we're seeing with Memories of Ice here. You know, there's overlap going on with timelines. Yeah, so I don't think, I'm like you, it's like I'm thinking 6 months. So I don't think you would have much time to imprint anything Reeve on them. I mean, because that takes years to imprint that people's kind of stuff onto you. Being around them, growing up with them, eating with them, living with them, sleeping with them, you know, kind of deal, as opposed to this stranger who you're just kind of watching grow up apart from you.
I mean, she was living with them. She was wearing their clothes, playing with the kids a little bit. But I mean, she aged out so fast, probably didn't have too much time to make friends and close bonds with anybody.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. She's an oddity. I'm assuming she's an oddity.
Exactly. The kids would probably be freaked out as well because just how different she is.
I played with that girl. I played with her, and all of a sudden she's an adult. She's older than my mom.
That'd be weird. Part of this also makes me wonder how much the prior soul is carried over when transplanted into the new host. Is it just pieces of them, or is it their entire personality? Like how that actually influences the new individual.
Right. I believe, personally, I think that they're all they're all there, but how much is awake or aware? You know, are they doing the big sleep in there, the big Lido sleep? Sorry. You know what I'm talking about. Are they just kind of laying back, you know, not concerned, not caring? Because according to what we've learned from Nightchill, I would have thought her personality would have been more dominant. But maybe the form, as we're growing older with these three souls, it uses each one at a different time, because it's like, okay, I need this one for the kind of, to be able to grow with. Tattersail's more usable with people now. Nightchill may assume later on, when, you know, and who knows? I'm not really sure. But I think they're all in there somewhere.
Yeah, maybe different scenarios bring out different aspects of them or something.
Yeah, could very well be.
Prior to that comment on how watchful the mule is has me wondering what mental capacity this quote-unquote beast has.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely missing something extremely crucial here. And I know this beast is going to be something more than he appears, I'm assuming, because Mr. Erikson didn't just throw things out that aren't relevant in some way.
Yeah.
That includes his jokes, too. You know, he sets things up, everything. And I love his setups for his humor, too.
With some pretty good payoffs.
Dude, absolutely.
Murillo said, I think she sleeps once more. Call murmured, for the best. Murillo said, I remember my own youth, in a quiet, introspective tone. Call said, I remember your own youth too, Murillo. Murillo went on, wild and wasteful. Call cut in, a different widow every night, as I recall. Murillo said, I was a lodestone indeed, and, you know, it was also effortless. Call said, we'd noticed. Murillo sighed, then said, but no longer. I've aged, paid the price for my younger days. Call interrupted, nights, you mean. Murillo said, whatever. New rivals have arrived. Young bloods. Marak of Paxto, tall and lithe and turning heads wherever he saunters. The smug bastard. Then there's Peril of Menekre. Call said, oh really, Murillo, spare me all this. You know, I never really thought of Murillo as being that old. Maybe high 20s, possibly early 30s. To call that old seems strange when you have people like Dujek running around in their 70s and seemingly doing quite well.
This is one of the issues I have always had with this series, is ages. Some people act like they're old men, and like Fid. I'm going to go to Fid. I always, for some reason, I think Fiddler's always in his 40s. It's just the experiences these guys have gone through that make me think these guys are. He's in his 20s, right?
Late 20s, I believe, at this point.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude. So I have a very hard time even gauging on especially the guys from Darujistan who have been hanging around like Cole and Murillo. Now I assume those guys were maybe in their would have been older than that crew, maybe their 30s and 40s possibly. That's about the age to stop doing that kind of hijinks. So maybe he's in his 40s or so?
I think Call, it was mentioned he might be balding a bit. So, yeah, I could see maybe he's late 30s, early 40s. Maybe I had a wrong picture of Murillo. But even then, I guess part of the problem is, I'm 43. I don't consider myself old, but my kids are like, you're going to die next year or something. You know what I mean? They think I'm ancient.
Yeah. Well, I laugh because I feel like for me, I see a lot of people my age. I have a friend on Facebook that I see that I just saw a picture of him the other day, and I was like, holy moly, are you 60? I'm older than you are. And it's like, I mean, I'm close. Don't get me wrong, I'm 55, but I feel like maybe it's just hooking up with this younger woman that's made me age out a little bit. I've got aging backwards a little bit. She's making me younger, I guess. I don't know. Okay, listeners, I'm sorry. My wife is not like some child. I mean, she's only 5 years younger than me. I'm just teasing.
Murillo said, the point is, it was all a stretch of years, full years, pleasurable ones. And for all that, I'm on the wane. At least I can look back and recall my days, all right, my nights, of glory. But here with this poor woman, Call said, I hear you. Ever notice those copper ornaments she's wearing? There, you can see the pair on her wrist. Krupp's gifts from Darujistan. Murillo asked, what about them? Call said, well, as I was saying, ever notice them? It's a strange thing. They get brighter, shinier when she's sleeping. Murillo said, do they? Call said, I'd swear it on a stack of Krupp's handkerchiefs. Murillo said, how odd. Call said, they're kind of dull right now, though. There was a silence from the two men crouched above her. After a long moment, the hand resting on her shoulder squeezed slightly. Murillo whispered, ah, my dear, would that I could take back my words. That's one of those moments where immediately after you said something, you get that sinking feeling in your stomach when you realize, uh-oh, once you know what you've done.
Those are awful moments when you just put your foot so fully in your mouth,
Yes.
And it just makes you, and you're such a heel. And what's funny, some people may not even think of you that way, but it's the fact that you feel that way. It's like, I guess, at least you felt bad about it because I like Cole and Murillo. They're some interesting fellows.
Mm-hmm.
I like them being on the ambassadorial group, I guess is the best way. Is that what you'd call them, the ambassador kind of class?
Call, yes. Murillo, I was thinking about that as I was reading through this chapter. I'm not sure why he decided to come on this trip.
Just to hang out with the boys, maybe?
Yeah, unless he's getting paid to escort Call or something.
Yeah, I'm like, you got to understand his purpose here. I'm assuming Krupp pulled him here because of the stuff with the Maib.
Okay, so manipulated him to be there, you think? Okay.
Yes.
Because I was going to say, they seem surprised to see Krupp get there before them earlier in the book.
That guy.
Yeah, but maybe Murillo's purpose from the perspective of Mr. Erikson is he's a very compassionate individual.
Yes.
And out of that group, he's definitely the one that I get the most human emotions from. Cole, he was a drunk most of the first book, and we still don't really have a good gauge on him.
We don't really know
we
him.
haven't really had a lot of conversations with him. Krupp is Krupp.
Yes.
Crocus is a kid.
Yeah.
So Murillo was always, to me, the most fleshed out of that group.
Yeah, I agree with you. Him being here, I enjoy his compassionate side. It's very nice to see because it kind of offsets this part. When we get to later on, in particular with the Maib, her sadness gets kind of overwhelming at points. And I like having these guys here to help lift her spirits as best they can.
Sadness is one way to put it. I mean, she's straight up vitriolic now, it feels like.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention Ralik Nam, and of course, he's not very talkative at all. So you don't get much from him ever. The Maib thought, why? They were truth, words from your heart, and it is a generous one for all your irresponsible youth. You've given voice to my curse. That changes nothing. Am I to be pitied? Only when I'm asleep, it seems. To my face you say nothing, and consider your silence a kindness. But it mocks me, for it arrives as indifference. And this silence of mine, to these two kind men looking down on me right now, which of my countless flaws does this reveal? Your pity, it seems, is no match for my own. Her thoughts trailed away then. The treeless ochre wasteland of her dream world appeared, and she within it. She began running. We go to Dujek and Whiskey Jack. Dujek flung his gauntlets against the tent wall as he entered, his face dark with fury. Whiskey Jack unstoppered the jug of ale and filled 2 goblets. Both men were smeared in sweaty dust. Dujek rasped, "What madness is this?" pausing only long enough to snatch up one of the goblets before beginning to pace. Whiskey Jack stretched his battered legs out, the chair creaking beneath him. He swallowed a long draught of ale, sighed, and said, "Which madness are you referring to, Dujek?" Dujek said, "Aye, the list is getting damned long. The crippled god. The ugliest legends belong to that broken bastard." Whiskey Jack said, "Fisher Keltath's poem on the chaining." Dujek cut in, "I'm not one for reading poetry, but hood knows, I've heard bits of it, spoken by tavern bards and the like. Fainter's balls, this isn't the war I signed on to fight." Whiskey Jack's eyes narrowed on Dujek. He said, "Then don't." Dujek stopped pacing and faced Whiskey Jack. After a moment, he said, "Go on." Whiskey Jack shrugged and said, "Brood already knew." His shrug made him wince. He thought, as did Corlat. He said, "With him, you could reasonably include Animander Rake, and Calor, though I liked not the avid glint in that man's eye. So, 2 ascendants and 1 would-be ascendant. The crippled god is too powerful for people like you and me to deal with, High Fist. Leave it to them and to the gods. Both Rake and Brood were there at the chaining, after all." Dujek said, "Meaning it's their mess." Whiskey Jack said bluntly, "Yes, it is." Dujek said, "For which we're all paying, and might well pay the ultimate price before too long. I'll not see my army used as fodder in that particular game, Whiskey Jack. We were marching to crush the Panyan Daman, a mortal empire, as far as we could determine." Okay, I think I'm finally with everyone else saying that Brood and Animander Rake knew the crippled god was behind all of this.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Also, note how Whiskey Jack called Calor a would-be ascendant.
Yep.
That answers that question as well.
Yeah, so they've just caught him, and they're keeping him capped out somehow at that would-be ascendant level.
The curse, right? The Elder God curse.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that curse maintains its efficacy once all of them are out of the picture. So Nightchill's gone, and then Draconis, we don't know where he is. I guess he's in Dragnapur, right? Yes. And then Karul, he's pretty weak. So, yeah, I wonder if that curse would go away if they all just
if they
were
cease
gone.
to be, if they are what actually enforces the curse. Yeah, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a problem in the future, couldn't it?
We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
Whiskey Jack said, "Manipulation seems to be going on both sides, Dujek." Dujek asked, "And I am to be comforted by that?" His glare was fierce. He held it on Whiskey Jack for another moment, then quaffed his ale. He thrust the empty goblet out. Whiskey Jack refilled it, then rumbled, "We're hardly ones to complain of manipulation, are we, friend?" Dujek paused, then grunted. Whiskey Jack thought, "Indeed. Calm yourself, High Fist. Think clear thoughts." Whiskey Jack said, "Besides, I have faith." Dujek snapped, "In what? In whom? Pray tell me." Whiskey Jack said, "In a certain short, corpulent, odious little man." Dujek said, "Krupp, have you lost your mind?" Whiskey Jack smiled. He said, "Old friend, look upon your own seething anger, your rage at this sense of being manipulated, used, possibly deceived. Now consider how an ascendant like Caladan Brood would feel upon the realization that he is being manipulated. Enough to shatter the control of his temper? Enough to see him unlimber his hammer and seek to obliterate that smug, pompous puppet master." Dujek stood unmoving for a long time. Then a grin curved his lips. He said, in other words, he took Krupp seriously. Whiskey Jack said, "Darujistan, our grand failure. Through it all, I had the sense that someone, somewhere, was orchestrating the whole damned thing. Not Animander Rake, not the Cabal, not Vorkin and her assassins. Someone else. Someone so cleverly hidden, so appallingly capable that we were helpless, utterly helpless. And then, at the parley, we all discovered who was responsible for Tattersail's rebirth. As Silver Fox, a child of a Reeve woman, the seed planted and the birth managed within an unknown warren. The drawing together of threads, Nightchill, Bellerdan, Tattersail herself, and, it now appears, an elder god, returned to the mortal realm. And finally, and most remarkably, the Talani Mass. So, Tattersail, Nightchill, and Bellerdan, all of the Malazan Empire, reborn to a Reeve woman, of Brood's army, with a parley looming, the potential of a grand alliance. How hood-damned convenient that a child should so bridge the camps." Dujek interrupted, "Barring Calor." Whiskey Jack slowly nodded. He said, "And Calor's just been reminded of Brood's power, hopefully sufficiently to keep him in line." Dujek asked, "Is that what all that was about?" Whiskey Jack said, "Maybe. He demanded a demonstration, did he not? What Krupp manipulates is circumstance, somehow. I don't feel we are fated to dance as he wills. There is an elder god behind the Daru, but even there, I think it's more of an alliance of mutual benefit, almost between equals. A partnership, if you will. Now, I'll grant you, all of this is speculation on my part, but I'll tell you this. I have been manipulated before, as have you, but this time it feels different, less inimical. Dujek, I sense compassion this time." Dujek muttered, "An alliance of equals." Then he shook his head. He said, "What, then, does that make this Krupp? Is he some god in disguise? A wizard of magnitude? An archmage?" Whiskey Jack shrugged. He said, "My best guess, Krupp is a mortal man, but gifted with an intelligence that is singular in its prowess. And I mean that most literally. Singular, Dujek. If an elder god was suddenly flung back into this realm, would he not seek out as his first ally the greatest of minds?" Oh my god. Is Krupp the Kwisatz Haderach?
I think we've posited this before, haven't we?
I'm not sure.
I feel like I have for some reason, because if anyone would be, it'd be Krupp. He's definitely, these guys are, including Rake and Brood, are all playing checkers, apparently, compared to Krupp. And it's like, wow.
He sees all possibilities.
He really does.
All futures.
But what fascinates me is the fact that Whiskey Jack seems to have pegged on to one thing in particular, that I think the guy's just a normal guy. Just one of the smartest men you'll ever meet, but it's a fella that's just kind of backed up by somebody. I think that's pretty impressive that he sees that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite astute, a lot of these observations that he has.
Very astute.
Dujek's face revealed disbelieving wonder. He said, "But, Whiskey Jack, Krupp?" Whiskey Jack said, "Krupp, who gave us the Trigal Trade Guild, the only traders capable of supplying us on the route we chose to march. Krupp, who brought to the Mibe the surviving possessions of the first Reeve for her to wear and so diminish the pain she feels. And those ornaments are, I suspect, yet to fully flower. Krupp, the only one Silver Fox will speak with, now that Perrin is gone. And finally, Krupp, who has set himself in the crippled god's path." Dujek said, "If just a mortal, then how did he survive Brood's wrath?" Whiskey Jack said, Well, I expect his ally, the Elder God would not wish to see the Daru killed. I'd guess there was intervention then. What else could it have been?" Dujek emptied his goblet. He sighed and said, "Damn, all right. We ignore, as best we can, the crippled god. We remain focused on the Panyan Daman. Still, my friend, I mislike it. I can't help but be nervous in that we are not actively engaged in considering this new enemy." Whiskey Jack said, "I don't think we are, High Fist." Dujek's glance was sharp, searching, then his face twisted. He said, "Quick, Ben." Whiskey Jack slowly nodded. He said, "I think so. I'm not certain. Hood, I don't even know if he's still alive, but knowing Quick, he is. Very much alive. And, given his agitation the last time I saw him, he's without illusions and anything but ignorant." Dujek said, "And he's all we've got to outwit the crippled god?" Whiskey Jack said, "High Fist. If Krupp is this world's foremost genius, then Quick Ben's but a step behind him. A very short step." What about Pust? Where does he lie in that hierarchy?
The bad thing is Pust is probably up there too. But
that's scary, isn't it?
It is. But he's so stinking crazy. I assume he is so stinking crazy. It could all be an act, but I don't think it's an act. We've seen him with his acts where he's, little do they know that I'm doing, as he's telling them everything he's doing to them while he's not telling them,
Yeah.
So if he wasn't so crazy, he'd be really smart.
I think about listening to some genius level intellect, and sometimes they're just weird. They are
very weird. They're next level. That's what you get for being next level. Because you're just weird, man.
Uh-huh.
And genetically speaking, that's true. You are weird. I mean, you're the weird one out. You're the one you're the next step up on the ladder of intelligence next to some of us regular folks. And it's like, dude, yeah, it's their brains think about a lot of stuff. My brain thinks about a lot of weird stuff.
It's probably hard to break it down to a level that they feel that the average person can follow along, if they even care to do that.
Right.
Because they're either going to talk above your level and you're completely lost, or they're going to try and dumb it down and it's got to be a challenge. Plus, I don't know.
So a question for you is like, where is Elon on this chart?
Well, I was going to say there's probably also some level of autism in some cases where they're highly, highly intelligent, but there's some social issues due to autism as well. So that could contribute potentially.
Yeah, I get it. Okay. I, as a musician, have brushed up against some folks who are very talented. I mean, I'd call them genius level players. And those are always the most troubled individuals. The best players are always the most troubled.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
They heard shouts outside the tent, then booted feet. A moment later, Artanthos pulled aside the flap and entered. He said, "Sirs, a lone Moranth has been spotted, flying in from the northeast. It's Twist." Whiskey Jack rose, grunting at the cascade of aches and twinges the motion triggered. He said, Queen of Dreams, we're about to receive some news. Dujek growled, let's hope it's cheering news. I could do with some. The Mib's heart was pounding, her breaths coming in gasps. She lay whimpering, too tired to keep running, too tired to even so much as raise her head. The tundra of her dreams had revealed new enemies, not the band of strangers pursuing her this time. This time she had been found by wolves. Huge, gaunt creatures, bigger than any she had ever seen in her waking life. 8 long-legged, shoulder-hunched beasts. The one in the lead had turned, as if catching her scent on the dry, cold wind, and the chase had begun. At first the Mib had reveled in the fleetness of her young, lithe legs. Swift as an antelope, faster than anything a mortal human could achieve, she had fled across the barren land. The wolves kept pace, tireless, the pack ranging out to the sides, one occasionally sprinting, darting in from one side or the other, forcing her to turn. Again and again, when she sought to remain between hills, on level land, the creatures somehow managed to drive her upslope, and she began to tire. The pressure never relented. Into her thoughts came the horrifying realization that escape was impossible, that she was going to die, pulled down like any other animal doomed to become a victim of the wolves' hunger. For them, she knew, the sea of her mind, whipped now to a frenzied storm of panic and despair, meant nothing. They were hunters, and what resided within the soul of their quarry had no relevance. They were reduced one and all to meat. Life's final lesson, the only truthful one buried beneath a layered skein of delusions. Sooner or later, she now understood, we are all naught but food. Wolves or worms, the end abrupt or lingering, it mattered not in the least. Whimpering, half-blind, she staggered up yet another hillside. They were closer. She could hear their paws crunching through the wind-dried lichen and moss. To her right, to her left, closing, edging slightly ahead. Crying out, the Mib stumbled, fell face first onto the rocky summit. She closed her eyes, waited for the first explosion of pain as teeth ripped into her flesh. The wolves circled. She listened to them, circled, then began spiraling in, closer, closer. A hot breath gusted against the back of her neck. The Mib screamed. Does it feel like there's a progression going on here to you in these dreams, that it's slowly getting somewhere?
Yeah, she's definitely being forced, I say this, well, guided somewhere in her dreams, I feel. But she's not seeing it as any kind of help. You know, it's tormenting her instead of, and I don't think it's meant to be that way.
I think part of it is maybe she's not ready to receive whatever's going on, and she has to mentally get there.
Well stated, sir. That's probably true.
Because the voices, they were asking her, are you ready to talk to us yet? And she keeps running away from them.
Yeah.
They obviously want something. She won't even entertain the idea, though.
Yeah, she wouldn't even talk to him. So I keep forgetting about that. All she got to do is stop and talk. She can quit running.
The Mib awoke. Above her, a fading blue sky. Haze of dust from the herd, drifting. In the air, distant voices, and, much closer, the ragged, rattling sound of her own breathing. The wagon had stopped moving. The army was settling in for the night. She lay huddled, motionless beneath the furs and hides. A pair of voices were murmuring nearby. She smelled the smoke of a dung cook fire, smelled a herbal, meaty broth, sage, a hint of goat. A third voice arrived, was greeted by the first two, all strangely indistinct, beyond her ability to identify. She thought, and not worth the effort. My watchers, my jailers. The wagon creaked. Someone crouched beside her and said, sleep should not leave you so exhausted. The Mib said, no, Corlat, it should not. Please, now, let me end this myself. So she's flipping back and forth between let me end this and don't let me end this.
Yeah, I'll kind of revisit this later. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Mib.
Okay.
And so we'll come back to this.
Corlat said, no, here, Call has made a stew. The Mib said, I've no teeth left with which to chew. Corlat said, just slivers of meat, easily swallowed, mostly broth. The Mib said, I'm not hungry. Corlat said, nevertheless, shall I help you sit up? The Mib said, hood take you, Corlat, you and the rest, every one of you. Corlat said, here, I will help you. The patience it would take to just soak up all this obstinacy and complaint coming from someone you're trying to help. I know of some people whose parents went down this path when they were in the closing chapter of their lives, and it took a serious toll on the children that were there trying to help them.
Yeah, thank the Lord for people that want to help people that are sick and dying, because that is a hard thing to do, because some people are righteously angry and upset over why they're dying. And they have every reason to feel that way. And I agree, it would be so hard that's why I thank the Lord for the healthcare people doing this to help people out, because I couldn't imagine this where I don't know of any personal instances. I mean, I've heard of instances where people take care of parents who are just horrible when they're sick to them, and it's like, and then they die, and it just destroys you mentally. I have not seen that with my own eyes, thank God. But I've not known anyone that's gone through it either. But you hear horror stories.
Mm-hmm. Losing a parent's bad enough. Mm-hmm. Let's say you had a good relationship with your parent. If you had to go through the final chapter like this, it could potentially sour the entire experience you had growing up.
Yeah.
And as bad as it is, I mean, granted, I'm like halfway through my life.
Right.
So, maybe I'll feel different 30 years from now if I live that long. But I would think that you'd want to leave, even if you're going out in a bad way, that you'd want your children to not be burdened by the memories of that last bit. Because the most recent thing, obviously, is going to be what you remember for a while, at least. They might get some flashbacks to when they were kids or something like that. But realistically, if it's bad enough, you could really damage that relationship on your way out and then leave them traumatized.
Oh, yeah. It could retroactively ruin the relationship, even though it was only this last bit of it, and it could go back and in your own mind screw everything up that was not messed up.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a different scenario because they're not her children, but the situations I've seen where I've known of this happening was with the parents and their children, so that's what I'm talking about in that context. Okay. For a stranger to be treating you like this, and you're just there trying to help them, that's even harder, because it's like, why is the stranger even trying? You know what I mean? the compassion and patience it would take is something next level.
It is next level.
The Maib said, "Your good intentions are killing me." "No, not killing. That's just it, isn't it?" She grunted, feebly trying to twist away from Corlat's hands as the Tistandee lifted her effortlessly into a sitting position. The Maib continued, "Torturing me. Your mercy, which is anything but. No, look not at my face, Corlat." She drew her hood tighter and said, "Lest I grow avid for the pity in your eyes. Where is this bowl? I will eat. Leave me." Corlat said, "I will sit with you, Maib. There are 2 bowls, after all." The Maib stared down at her own wrinkled, pocked, skeletal hands, then at the bowl clutched between them, the watery broth with its sliver of wine-stained meat. She said, "See this? The butcher of the goat, the slayer. Did he or she pause at the desperate cries of the animal, look into its pleading eyes, hesitate with the knife? In my dreams, I am as that goat. This is what you curse me to." After a moment, Corlat said, "The slaughterer of the goat was Revi. You and I know that ritual well, Maib. Propitiation, calling upon the merciful spirit whose embrace is necessity. You and I both know how that spirit comes upon the goat, or indeed any such creature whose body shall feed your people, whose skin shall clothe you. And so the beast does not cry out, does not plead. I have witnessed and wondered, for it is indeed a remarkable thing, unique to the Revi, not in its intent, but in its obvious efficacy. It is as if the ritual's arriving spirit shows the beast a better future, something beyond the life it's known to that point." The Maib murmured, "Lies. The spirit deceives the poor creature, to make the slaying easier." Corlat fell silent. The Maib raised the bowl to her lips. Corlat continued, "Perhaps even then, the deception is a gift of mercy." The Maib snapped, "There is no such thing. Words to comfort the killer and his kin and naught else. Dead is dead, as the bridge burners are wont to say. Those soldiers know the truth of it. Children of the Malazan Empire hold no illusions. They are not easily charmed." Corlat said, "You seem to know much of them." The Maib said, 2 Marines come to visit occasionally. They've taken it upon themselves to guard my daughter, and to tell me of her, since no one else has a mind to, and I cherish them for that." Corlat said, "I did not know this." The Maib said, "It alarms you? Have terrible secrets been revealed to me? Will you now put a stop to it?" A hand closed on her shoulder. Corlat said, "I wish you would at least look upon my face, Maib. No, I will do no such thing. Nor am I aware of any dire secrets being kept from you. Indeed, I now wish to seek out these 2 Marines to thank them." The Maib said, "Leave them be, Corlat. They do not ask for thanks. They are simple soldiers, 2 women of the Empire. Through them, I know that Krupp visits Silver Fox regularly. He's taken on the role of kindly uncle, perhaps. Such a strange man. Endearing, despite the terrible curse he has laid upon me." Corlat said, "Curse? Oh, Maib, of all that I have seen of Krupp, I can tell you, he is not one to curse anyone. I do not believe he ever imagined what the rebirthing of Tattersall would mean to you." The Maib said, "So very true that. I understand it well, you see. He was called upon by the Elder God, who either chose to become involved or was so already. An abomination had been created, as Calor has called it, and it was an abomination in fact. The withered corpse of Nightchill, Tattersall's soul trapped within it. The apparition webbed by Talani mass sorcery. A nightmare creation. The elder god sought to save it, somehow, in some form, and for that it seemed he needed Krupp. Thus, the Daru did all he could, believing it to be a mercy. But make no mistake now, Corlat. Krupp and his elder god have decided to make use of the child they fashioned. Opportunistic or deliberate from the start. Does it matter? And lo, Krupp now walks with Silver Fox. Do they conspire? Am I blind? Corlat said, Conspire? To what end, Maib? The Maib said, You don't know? I find that hard to believe. Corlat said, Clearly, you have concluded we are all conspiring. Against you. The Maib said, Aren't you? With all the strength she could muster, the Maib flung the bowl away, heard it splash, bouncing off something, heard a shout of surprise from Murillo, who it seemed had the misfortune to be in its path of flight. Man, poor Murillo.
He's sure catching it this episode.
Yeah. The Maib hissed, Guard me, feed me, watch me so I don't take my own life? And this is not a conspiracy? And my daughter, my own daughter, does she visit? No. When have I last seen her face? When? I can barely remember the time. The hand tightened on her shoulder. Corlat's voice, when she spoke, was low yet taut. I hear you, my friend. I shall get to the bottom of this. I shall discover the truth, and then I shall tell you. This I promise, Maib. The Maib said, Then tell me, what has happened? Earlier today, I felt something, an event. Colin Murillo spoke of a scene between Krupp and Brood. Tell me, where was Silver Fox in all this? Corlat said, She was there. She joined me as I rode forward in answer to Whiskey Jack's summons. I will be honest, Maib. Something indeed did occur before the clash between Brood and Krupp. Your daughter has found protectors, but she will not extend that protection to you. For some reason, she believes you are in danger now. I do not know the source. The Maib thought, Yet I do. Oh, Corlat, your friendship for me has blinded you. I am in danger indeed, from myself. She said, Protectors? Who? What? Corlat drew a deep breath, let it out slowly, then said, Silver Fox asked that I say nothing to you of them. I could not understand why, yet I acquiesced. I realize now that to do so was wrong to you, Maib. A conspiracy, and I shall not be a party to it. Your daughter's protectors were wolves, ancient giant beasts. Terror ripped through the Maib. Snarling, she flung a hand at Corlat's face, felt her nails tear through the skin. She screamed, My hunters! As Corlat flinched away. She went on, They want to kill me, my daughter. She thought, My daughter, plaguing my dreams, spirits below, she wants to kill me. Colin and Murillo had leapt onto the wagon, were shouting in alarm even as Corlat hissed at them to calm down, but the Maib ceased hearing them, ceased seeing anything of the world surrounding her at that moment. She continued thrashing, nails clawing the air, betrayal searing through her chest, turning her heart into ashes. She thought, my daughter, in my voice it whimpers, in my eyes they plead, and that knife is in her hands, and in her gaze there is naught but cold, cold intent. It feels like she is in a prison of madness, sees conspiracy everywhere.
Yeah, and this is what I was going to talk about just a minute ago about her, is the thing that, because we were just talking about how long we thought this was, maybe 6 months, but I had written here a single year. But, I mean, to have gone from a young, healthy woman in her 20s, early 20s, to being an old woman who's toothless, old hag, you know, it would probably drive you crazy and really, really piss you off. Especially the older especially as you get closer to the end, and it seems like everyone's shutting you out, and they're not. It's just it's just that she can't see past this right now. She is in her despair phase, and not unrightfully so. I mean, this is a 23-year-old woman, after all, who's now an old toothless old woman. So I can't imagine what that'd be like, aging that quick, and how hard that'd be physically, how painful that'd be in some ways, and just painfully emotionally. It'd be on you.
Yeah, you feel robbed. Yeah. I don't even know if she was given a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she was.
Yeah, I see that side of it. Being dragged through the whole experience of her processing it, though, it's just not... I
don't enjoy this.
Yeah. It's a slog.
We slog through the Maib stuff here, and not because it's bad. It's necessary to feel sympathy and empathy for this woman. She's a very important woman, but it is hard to get through it because it's like, okay, we understand. The woman's upset. We get it, okay?
This is probably the third time we're going through this. It feels the same every time. I realize there's a progression in the dreams, but it's like, let's watch her ruin every relationship she has in the interim until we get to that wherever we're going with her.
Yeah, it's hard to take. I'm with you. It is hard to take that stuff. Curse you, Erikson, for writing so well.
I'm sure there's some people that enjoy this aspect of the books. This is the part of the books that I'm less interested in.
Well, the problem, and he's done this to us because, dude, you open up Gardens of the Moon, you got a floating castle in the sky and an atomic war of magic going on. It's just, that just kind of sets the stage for the whole series. And Deadass Gates is one long run through a constant attack. I mean, there's barely any breaks for exposition. When it is, it's given piecemeal. Here we get whole chunks of time to explain, and we need these. And we do need this. I understand this. And the excitement that this does get to, it does get crazy, and it gets crazier than the other books, but I just needed to get to it.
At least in this chapter, we had some good exchanges between some of the other people, so kind of made up for it.
Yes. With the Krupp Brood stuff, that's such a core instance in the whole series for me and you. That's like, I can overlook this stuff as we go through it, and we will make it through it.
Whiskey Jack's half-smile vanished when he turned upon Corlat's arrival, to see that her eyes were as white-hot iron, to see as she stalked through the tent's entrance 4 parallel slashes on her right cheek, wet with blood that had run down the line of her jaw and now dripped onto the rushes covering the floor. Whiskey Jack almost stepped back as Corlat strode towards him. He asked, "Corlat, what has happened?" With an icy tone, Corlat grated, "Hear my words, lover. Whatever secrets you have withheld from me about Tattersail Reborn, about those damned Talan A, about what you've instructed those 2 Marines guarding the child to say to the Maib, you will tell me, now." Whiskey Jack felt himself grow cold, felt his face twitch at the full thrust of her fury. He quietly asked, "Instructions? I've given them no instructions, not even to guard Silver Fox. What they've done has been their own decision. What they might have said, that it should lead to this, well, I shall accept responsibility for that, for I am their commander, and I assure you, if punishment is required." Corlat said, "Stop. A moment, please." Something had settled within her, and now she trembled. I'm reading this and I'm thinking, what a man. Mm-hmm. He weathers her anger, doesn't take it personally, accepts responsibility for those under his command. I've said it before, but how could you not love this guy?
You can't. I think even his enemies probably like him to some extent, and we know this.
Yeah.
Because Brood and Rake have been on the opposite side of this, but Brood immediately upon meeting these guys was like, they felt a kinship with these guys, so yeah, they react to him. I mean, the Ascendants react to Whiskey Jack and to Dewjack, but in particular Whiskey Jack.
It does feel that way.
He excites them somehow. I think his being the man that he is, he excites them because they don't have that. They have burnt through, they have nothing. Especially the long-living people like the Tistandi who have nothing, but just to maybe fight for some cause that we don't believe in. It's like they would probably like to fight for this guy. Maybe they could die for him. They'd feel better,
Yeah, Rake reached out to be friends with him.
Yeah.
That's probably a really unique scenario.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah, I'm assuming extremely rare.
Whiskey Jack thought to take her in his arms, but held back. She needed comfort, he sensed, but his instincts told him she was not yet ready to receive it. He glanced around, found a relatively clean hand cloth, soaked it in a basin, then held it out to her. She had watched in silence, the shade of her eyes deepening to slate gray, but she made no effort to accept the cloth. He slowly lowered his hand. Corlat asked, "Why did Silver Fox insist that her mother not learn of the Talan A?" Whiskey Jack said, "I have no idea, Corlat, beyond the explanation she voiced. At the time, I thought you knew." Corlat said, "You thought I knew." He nodded. Corlat said, "You thought that I had been keeping from you a secret, something to do with Silver Fox and her mother." Whiskey Jack shrugged. Corlat asked, "Were you planning to confront me?" Whiskey Jack said, "No." Her eyes widened on him. Silence stretched, then she said, "For hood's sake, clean my wounds." Relieved, he stepped closer and began, with the gentlest of touches, to daub her cuts. He quietly asked, "Who struck you?" Corlat said, "The Maib. I think I have just made a dreadful mistake, for all my good intentions." Whiskey Jack said, "That's often the case with good intentions." Corlat's gaze narrowed searchingly. She said, "Pragmatic Malazans. Clear-eyed indeed. Why do we keep thinking of you as just soldiers? Brood, Rake, Calor, myself. We all look upon you and Dewjack and your army as something ancillary. A sword we hope to grasp in our hands when the need arrives. It seems now that we're all fools. In fact, none of us has come to realize the truth of how things now stand." Whiskey Jack frowned. He asked, "And how do they now stand?" Corlat said, "You have become our backbone. Somehow you are what gives us our strength, holds us together. Oh, I know you possess secrets, Whiskey Jack." He smiled wryly and said, "Not as many as you seem to think. I will tell you the biggest one. It's this. We feel outmatched. By you, by Rake, by Caladan Brood, by Calor, by the Tistandi army and that of the Revi and the Barghast. Hood, even that mob of mercenaries accompanying you makes us nervous. We don't have your power. We're just an army. Our best wizard isn't even ranked. He's a squad mage, and right now he's very far away. I suspect, feeling like a fly in a web. So, come the battles, we know we'll be the spear's head, and it's going to cost us dear. As for the seer himself, and whatever hides behind him, well, we're now hoping you'll deal with that. Same goes for the crippled god. You're right, Corlat, we're just soldiers. Tired ones at that. If we're this combined army's backbone, then Hood help us. It's a bowed, brittle one. She reached up and laid her hand over his, pressed it against her cheek. Their eyes locked. She said, bowed and brittle? I think not. Whiskey Jack shook his head. He said, I'm not being modest, Corlat. I speak the truth, though I fear you're not prepared to hear it. After a moment, Corlat said, Silver Fox is manipulating her mother, somehow, possibly even being responsible for the old woman's terrible nightmares. Whiskey Jack said, I find that hard to countenance. Corlat interrupted. Not something Tattersail would do, right? But what of this Nightchill, or the Thelamin? You knew them, Whiskey Jack, better than any of us, at least. Is it possible that one of them, or both, are responsible for this? He said nothing while he completed wiping clean the wounds on her cheek. He said, This will require a healer's touch, Corlat, lest infection. Corlat said, Whiskey Jack. He sighed and stepped back, then said, Nightchill, I fear, might well harbor feelings of betrayal. Her targets for vengeance could be chosen indiscriminately. Same for Bellerdan's Skullcrusher. Both were betrayed, after all. If you're right about what's happening to the Mybe, that they're doing something to her, then I still think that Tattersail would be resisting them. Corlat asked, What if she's already lost the struggle? Whiskey Jack said, I've seen no sign of. Corlat's eyes flashed, and she jabbed a finger against his chest, then said, Meaning your 2 Marines have reported no sign of it. He grimaced and said, They are volunteers nonetheless, Corlat. Given the alarming extent of our ignorance in these matters, it pays to be watchful. Those 2 Marines chose to guard Silver Fox because they see in her Tattersail, not just physically, but in the woman's personality as well. If anything had gone awry, they would have noticed it, and they would have come to me, fast. Corlat lowered her hand. She sighed and said, And here I've come storming in to tear your head from your shoulders. Damn you, Whiskey Jack. How did I come to deserve you? And the abyss take me. Why are you still here, after all my accusations? Whiskey Jack said, A few hours ago, Dujek made a similar entrance. He grinned and went on. It's just been that kind of day, I suppose. Now, we should call for a healer. Corlat said, In a moment. She studied him, then said, Whiskey Jack, you've truly no idea of how rare a man you are, do you? He said, Rare? His grin broadened, then he said, Of course I know. There's only one of me, thank Hood. Corlat said, That's not what I meant. Whiskey Jack moved closer and drew an arm about her waist. He said, Time to find a healer, woman. I've got simple needs, and we're wasting time. Corlat said, A soldier's reply. I'm not fooled, you know. Unseen by her, he closed his eyes and thought, Oh, but you are, Corlat. If you'd known the full extent of my fear, that I might lose you. We go elsewhere in the camp. Arms waving expansively, Krupp, Eel of Darujistan, occasional fence and thief, Defier of Caladan Brood the warlord, ambled his way down the main avenue of tents towards the supply wagons. I love that he has now picked up the title of Defier of Caladan Brood the warlord.
That's an amazing title. If I had done the same, I would have to brag that as Mel. I would have to add that to mine.
It's incredible.
It's a great accomplishment.
Krupp had just come from the cook tent of the Mott Irregulars, and in each hand was a nathy black cake, dripping with syrup. A few paces in his wake, his mule kept pace, nose stretched out to those 2 cakes, ears pricked forward. The second bell since midnight had just tolled through the camps. As he reached the edge of the wagons arranged rectangularly to form a wheeled fort, he noted 2 Malazan Marines, cloaks wrapped about their bodies, sitting before a small dung fire. Krupp altered his course and approached. He softly said, Gentle friends, 'tis late, and no doubt your pretty selves are due for some sweetness. The 2 women glanced up. One of them grunted, Huh, it's the fat Daru. The other said, And his mule, hovering there in the shadows. Krupp said, Unique indeed is Krupp. Behold. He thrust forward the dripping cakes and said, For you, darlings. One soldier asked, So which should we eat, the cakes or your hands? The other drew her knife at her companion's words, then said, A couple of quick cuts and we can choose for ourselves, right? Krupp stepped back and exclaimed, Queen of Dreams, hard-bitten and distinctly unfeminine. Guardians of fair Silver Fox, yes? Reassuring truth, heart of Tattersail, shining so bright from the child, now woman. One of the soldiers said, Aye, we seen you before plenty enough, chatting with the lass. She's the sorceress, all right, plain to see for them of us who knew her. Krupp said, extraordinary disconnectiveness, this exchange. Krupp is delighted. One of the soldiers asked, we getting them syrup cakes or what? Krupp said, naturally, though the flash of that blade still blinds generous Krupp. The soldier said, ye ain't got no sense of humor, have ya? Join us, if you dare. Krupp smiled and strode forward. He said, nathy black cakes, my dears. One of the soldiers said, we recognize them. The Mott irregulars used to throw them at us when they ran out of arrows. The other soldier said, J-Bar got one full in the face, as I recall. The first soldier said, that he did. Then he stumbled, and when he came up, he was like the forest floor with eyes. Krupp said, dreadful sap, deadly weapon, once more offering the cakes to the two Marines. They took them. Krupp said, courageous task, protection of the Reeve lass. One of the soldiers said, she ain't no Reeve lass. She's tattersail. That fur and the hides are just for show. Krupp said, ah, then you have spoken with her. The soldier said, not much, and we don't need to. These cakes go down better without all the twigs and leaves, don't they just? Krupp blinked, then slowly nodded and said, no doubt. Vast responsibility being the eyes of your commander regarding said lass. Both women paused in their chewing. They exchanged a glance, then one of them swallowed and said, who, Dujek? If we're his eyes, then he's blind as a mole. Krupp said, ah, Krupp meant Whiskey Jack, of course. The soldier said, Whiskey Jack ain't blind, and he don't need us to see for him either. Krupp smiled and said, nonetheless, he no doubt is greatly comforted by your self-appointed task and reports and such. Were Krupp Whiskey Jack, he knows he would. The soldier asked, would what? Krupp said, why, be comforted, of course. Both women grunted, then one snorted and said, that's a good one, if you're a Whiskey Jack. Ha! Krupp said, a figure of speech. The soldier said, ain't no such thing, fatty. You trying to walk in Whiskey Jack's footsteps? Trying to see through his eyes? Ha! The other woman said, I'll say. Ha! Krupp said, and so you did. The soldier asked, did what? Krupp said, agree. The soldier said, damned right. Whiskey Jack should have been emperor when the old one got knocked off, not Lasine. But she knew who her rival was, didn't she just? That's why she stripped him of rank, turned him into a hood-damned sergeant, and sent him away, far away. Krupp said, an ambitious man, this Whiskey Jack, then. The soldier said, not in the least, Daru, and that's the whole point. Would have made a good emperor, I said. Not wanting the job is the best and only qualification worth considering. Krupp said, a curious assertion, dear. The soldier said, I ain't. Krupp asked, pardon? You ain't what? The soldier said, curious. Listen, the Malazan Empire would be a far different thing if Whiskey Jack had taken the throne all those years ago. If he'd done what we all wanted him to do and grabbed Lasine by the scruff of the neck and sent her through a tower window. Krupp asked, and was he capable of such a remarkable feat? The two Marines looked confused. One turned to her companion and asked, seen him out of his boots? The other shook her head and said, no, still they might be remarkable. Why not? The first soldier said, then it'd be a boot to the backside, but I said by the scruff of the neck. The other soldier said, well, feet that could do that would be remarkable, wouldn't they? The first soldier said, you got a point, friend. Krupp interrupted, a remarkable feat, dears, as in achievement. The first soldier said, oh. The other said, oh yeah, right, got it. So you're asking could he have done it if he'd a mind to? Sure, not good to cross Whiskey Jack, and if that's not enough, he's got wits. Krupp said, so why then, Krupp asked in wonder, did he not do so at the time? The first soldier said, because he's a soldier, you idiot. Lasine's taking the throne was messy enough. The whole empire was shaky. People start stabbing and jumping into a blood-wet throne, and sometimes it don't stop. Sometimes it's like dominoes, right? One after another, and the whole thing falls apart. He was the one we all looked to, right? Waiting to see how he'd take it, Lasine and all that. And when he just saluted and said, yes, Empress, well, things just settled back down. The other soldier said, he was giving her a chance, you see. Krupp said, of course, and do you lasses now believe he made a mistake? The women shrugged in unison. One said, don't matter now. We're here, and here's here, and that's that. Krupp rose with a sigh and said, so be it, and so be it. Wondrous conversation. Krupp thanks you, and will now take his leave. One soldier said, right. Thanks for the cakes. Krupp said, Krupp's pleasure. Good night, dears. He ambled off, back towards the supply wagons. As he disappeared into the gloom, the two Marines said nothing for a time, busy as they were licking the sap from their fingers. Then one sighed. The other followed suit. The first one said, well? The other said, ah, that was damned easy. The first asked, think so? The other said, sure. He came expecting to find 2 brains and found barely 1.
Dude, magnificent.
I love these two.
I love how they actually outfoxed Krupp. I mean, Krupp was there to get something, and he got nothing but a headache. I'm talking to these two guys.
This is great. The first said, still, it might have babbled too much. The other said, that's the nature of half-brains, love. To do otherwise would have made him suspicious. The first asked, "What do you figure he and Tattersail talk about anyway?" The other said, "The old woman is my guess." The first said, "I'd figured the same." The other said, "They got something in the works." The first said, "My suspicions exactly." The other said, "And Tattersail's in charge." The first said, "So she is." The other said, "Which is good enough for me." The first said, "Same here. You know, that black cake wasn't quite the same without the twigs and leaves." The other said, "That's odd. I was just thinking the same thing." The fact that those sweet cakes were thrown at them as weapons by the Mott irregulars, then eaten after being picked up off the ground, is hilarious to me.
Yeah, I don't know what that's an indication of. Either they're that good that they went back to get them after they fall on the ground, or that it tastes better with the sticks.
Or they're that hungry, they're starving or something, maybe?
Yeah, they're just that hungry. It's a good golly. Because I know that the military does struggle with food and keeping food for their group.
I can't imagine on the front lines, especially in Mottwood, that they'd be having access to sweet cakes. So maybe it was something different than their normal rations as well.
Yeah, I imagine the Mottwoods well, it's indicated it's been swampy. So I'm assuming these people, I think they probably ate a lot of gator. It's like Louisiana down there.
I got the same feeling.
Louisiana ate a lot of
catfish.
Yes,
noodling for some catfish.
Gator and catfish. Yeah.
Gar.
Oh yeah, the Monty regulars strike me as that's Louisiana. That's the bayou. In my
Yeah, I got that feeling too. Especially when we start getting into their magic later. It just has that feel to it.
It's the dirty South. Of magic, it's like, wow, it's the Oak Cliff of magic.
Within the wheeled fort, Krupp approached another campfire. The two men huddled around it looked up as he arrived. Murillo asked, "What's with your hands?" Krupp said, "All that Krupp touches sticks to him, my friend." Call rumbled, "Well, we've known that for years." Murillo inquired, "And what's with that damned mule?" Krupp said, "The beast haunts me in truth, but never mind that." Krupp has had an interesting discourse with two Marines, and he is pleased to inform that the last Silver Fox is in capable hands indeed. Murillo asked, "Sticky as yours?" Krupp said, "They are now, dear Murillo, they are now." Call said, "What you say is fine enough, but is it any help to us? There's an old woman sleeping in yon wagon whose broken heart is the least of her pains, and is bad enough to break the strongest man, let alone a frail ancient." Krupp said, "Krupp is pleased to assure you that matters of vast mercy are in progress. Momentary appearances are to be discounted." Call growled, "Then why not tell her that?" nodding towards the Mibes wagon. Krupp said, "Ah, but she is not yet ready to receive such truths, alas. This is a journey of the spirit. She must begin it within herself. Krupp and Silver Fox can only do so much, despite our apparent omnipotence." So I had mentioned this earlier. I think that's where I got that idea in my head, that she just wasn't ready yet.
Yeah, there we go.
Call asked, "Omnipotence, is it?" He shook his head and said, "Yesterday, and I'd laugh at that claim." "So you faced down Caladan Brood, did you? I'm interested in precisely how you managed that, you damn toad." Krupp's brows rose. He said, "Dear boon companion Call, your lack of faith crushes frail Krupp to his very toes, which are themselves wriggling in anguish." Murillo said, "For hood's sake, don't show us. You've been wearing those slippers for as long as I've known you, Krupp. Poliel herself would balk at what might lurk likely between them." Krupp said, "And well she should." To answer Call with succinct precision, Krupp proclaims that anger, nay rage, has no efficacy against one such as himself, for whom the world is as a pearl nestled within the slimy confines of his honed and muscled brain. Perhaps the illusion falters with second thought, and worse with third. Krupp tries again, for whom it was said the world is not but a plumaged dream of colors and wonders unimagined, where even time itself has lost meaning. Speaking of which, it's very late, yes? Sleep beckons, the stream of calm transubstantiation that metamorphoses oblivion into reparation and rejuvenation, and that alone is wonder enough for one and all to close this fitful night. He fluttered his hands in a final wave and walked off. After a moment, the mule trotted in his wake. The two men stared after them. I was wondering when he sleeps. This whole scene is taking place at 2 a.m. after all.
Yeah. I'm not convinced he sleeps, even then.
Yeah, well, I guess he was dreaming at the end of Gardens of the Moon.
This is true.
At the party.
He was dreaming there, and he dreamed.
But was that on purpose?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, because I think you were asking that very question.
Yeah.
Is he dreaming? I can't remember exactly what you asked, but it was a question about whether there was a purpose to his dreaming at that moment.
Okay. I think I recall that now that you mentioned that. It's been a year. Some change.
Oh, it's been longer than a year, my friend.
I said it's a year. It's
longer than a year. I hate to break it to you.
Oh, I know. Oh.
After a moment, Call rumbled, "Would that Brood's hammer connected with that oily pate." Murillo said, "It'd likely slip." Call said, "Aye, true enough." Murillo said, "Muscles and brains and cheesy toes. By the abyss, I think I'm going to be sick." High above the camp, Crone crooked her weary, leaden wings and spiraled down towards Brood's tent. Despite her exhaustion, shivers of excitement and curiosity ran through her. The fissure to the north of the encampment still bled Burns' fouled blood. Crone had felt that detonation when still over the Vision Mountains far to the southeast, and had instantly known it for what it was: Caladan Brood's anger. Kiss of the hammer, and with it an explosive reshaping of the natural world. She could see despite the darkness, and the sharply defined spine of a basaltic mountain range loomed where no mountains belonged, here at the heart of the Catlin Plain. And the sorcery emanating from the blood of the sleeping goddess, it too Crone recognized. The touch of the crippled god. Within Burns' veins, a transformation was taking place. The fallen one was making her blood his own. Crone thought, and that is a taste I know well, for it was as mother's milk to me so very long ago, to me and to my kin. Changes had come to the world below, and Crone revelled in changes. Her soul and that of her kin had been stirred once more to acute wakefulness. She had never felt more alive. She descended, sliding down to land with a soft thump on the earth before Brood's tent. No lights showed within. Faintly cackling, Crone hopped beneath the half-hitched entrance flap. From the darkness, Brood rumbled, "Not a word about my temper's snapped leash." Crone cocked her head towards the cot. Brood was seated on its edge, head in his hands. Crone murmured, "As you wish." Brood said, "Make your report." Crone said, "I shall. First, from Animander Rake. He has succeeded. Moonspawn has passed unseen and now hides. My children are ranging far over the lands of the Panyan Seer. Warlord, not just their eyes have witnessed the truth of all that lies below. I myself have seen." Brood cut in, "Save those details for later. Moonspawn is in place. Good. Did you fly to Capistan as I requested?" Crone said, "I did, Grave One, and was witness to the first day and first night of battle. One note here. Moonspawn hides. That's intriguing. How do you hide a floating mountain?"
You park it on the horizon in front of a range of mountains? I don't know. Like an optical illusion? I don't know.
Is it like a Chris Angel magician trick? Is that what you're...
It's kind of what I'm suggesting, yes.
Is that what you're going for there?
Yes.
Okay.
Right there in the open, but it's like, it's just hidden kind of by the, wait a minute, it doesn't look right. Those mountains there don't look right.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Yes, sir.
Brood asked, "Your assessment, Crone?" Crone said, "The city will not hold, Warlord. Through no fault of the defenders, what opposes them is too vast." Brood grunted. He said, "Perhaps we should have reconsidered Dujek's disposition of the Black Maranth." Crone said, "Ah, they too are in place, precisely where One Arm wanted them to be." Crone hesitated, turning first one eye, then the other towards Caladan Brood. She said, "One unusual detail must be uttered now, Warlord. Will you hear it?" Brood said, "Very well." Crone said, "The Seer wages a war to the south." Brood's head snapped up. Crone nodded and said, "Aye, my children have seen Daman armies, routed and retreating north, to Outlook itself. The Seer has unleashed formidable sorceries against the unknown enemy. Rivers of ice, walls of ice, blistering cold, winds and storms. It has been a long time since we have witnessed said particular warren unveiled." Brood said, "Omtos Falak, the warren of the Jagut." Crone said, "Even so. Warlord, you seem less surprised by that than I had anticipated." Brood said, "Of a war to the south, I am indeed surprised, Crone." He rose, drawing a fur blanket about his shoulders, and began pacing. He went on, "Of Omtos Falak? No, I am not surprised." Crone said, "Thus, the Seer is not as he seems." Brood said, "Evidently not. Rake and I had suspicions." Crone snapped, "Well, had I known them, I would have more closely examined the situation at Outlook. Your recalcitrance wounds us all." Brood said, "We'd no proof, Crone. Besides, we value your feathered hide too highly to risk your close approach to an unknown enemy's fastness. It is done. Tell me, does the Seer remain in Outlook?" Crone said, "My kin were unable to determine that. There are condors in the area, and they did not appreciate our presence." Brood asked, "Why should mundane birds cause you trouble?" Crone said, "Not entirely mundane. Aye, mortal birds are a little more than feathered lizards, but these particular condors were more lizard than most." Brood asked, "The Seer's own eyes?" Crone said, "Possibly." Brood said, "That could prove troublesome." And those are those massive condors that Talk had spied when he was in Outlook. Also, do my ears deceive me? Did Brood just admit that they value Crone?
Yes. Well, imagine this. As much as the warlord is, I mean, he's a fighter. Aerial surveillance is hard to come by, and especially aerial surveillance with intelligence behind it. It's not just, you're not just looking at images. It's like, what do you think you're seeing? Can imagine she's a very useful ally. And we still don't know how powerful she is either. I mean, as far as I know she's strong. I don't know how that equates into a fight situation, but I know she's strong.
Agreed. I just think it's funny given how he always gives her a hard time when he's talking to her.
Oh, yes. He loves to give this old gal a hard time.
But he just admitted that he does like her.
Yeah.
They value her.
Very much so.
But, I mean, you do have a good point. Tactically, very valuable to have them. Because the alternative is using the Moranth to do reconnaissance. And
that could be dangerous.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more dangerous. Also, they were on the opposite side as Brood in the last situation.
Yes.
Prior to the alliance, they were on the opposite side.
Right.
Crone shrugged with her wings half crooked. She said, "Have you some slivers of meat? I hunger." Brood said, "There's leftover goat from supper in the refuse pit behind the tent." Crone said, "What? You would have me eat from a refuse pit?" Brood said, "You're a damned raven, Crone. Why not?" Crone said, "Outrage. But if that's all there is," Brood said, "It is." Clucking to contain her fury, Crone hopped towards the tent's back wall. She murmured, "Take me as an example in the future," as she began edging her way under the fabric. Behind her, Brood asked, "What do you mean?" She ducked her head back inside, opened her beak in a silent laugh, then replied, "Did I lose my temper?" Growling, he stepped towards her. Crone squawked and fled. I love how she just had to get that last jab in about losing his temper right before she left the tent. That's great.
I am curious how long these two have known each other and work together, because there is a mutual respect, but it's always a mutual antagonism that goes along with that respect,
Mm-hmm.
I always like their antagonistic.
I imagine it's been a while. Thousands of years.
Thousands of years, I'm assuming, yes.
And thus the chapter ends. For standout moments, Cull and Murillo discussing Murillo's youthful endeavors.
I love any time we get a backstory on people, especially from previous novels that we like so much. Cull and Murillo, I like seeing them talk about any backstories. Is always fun to hear.
I also enjoyed Dujek and Whiskey Jack's conversation where they're processing all the details of what was revealed during the first section of the chapter.
Oh, yeah. That was really a very helpful input. I enjoy stuff we needed to hear and see. I enjoyed that.
And Whiskey Jack pretty masterfully got Dujek to calm down and think objectively about the situation.
Yes. Yeah, he did. Very nicely done, Dujek.
Or Whiskey Jack.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, if anyone's deserving of more respect than Whiskey Jack, it's Dujek. That guy is also really good. Love that fella, too. But Whiskey Jack is just our commander that we slog with, so I always love anything with that.
This is not so much of a highlight, but the Mibes continued descent into paranoia and vitriol.
Hard to see. Hard to watch, but I understand, especially where we're going, because like we talked about, she's got to accept this, whatever message she doesn't want to accept, but please just get on with it. Accept it, please. Yeah. Just get it, man. I'm sorry, I'm flashing back to South Park.
Whiskey Jack's handling of Corlat regarding the situation with the Mibe, similar to how he handled Dujek, is really masterful.
He's awesome, dude. Whiskey Jack is just amazing, dude. He is the man.
Krupp adding the title of Defier of Caladan Brood the Warlord to his list of titles. I absolutely love that.
Well, I love that one, and he's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I like that he's out proud with the eel of Darujistan, though, in his titles.
Yes. Silver Fox's self-appointed guards confounding Krupp. That was also well done.
Dude. Well, what's funny is, did they? Did they confound Krupp, or did Krupp get everything he wanted? Because he walked back and said, yeah, they're pretty good. She's got some good guardians. Or, it's kind of like, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think in the moment, he was having to parse their speech to get what he wanted.
Yes. I didn't think he got what he wanted, though. But it's sad, when he got back to camp, I'm like, oh, he got more than I thought he got out of that encounter.
Mm-hmm. Brood admitting that they value Crone, then offering her meat from the refuse pit. I love that. Absolutely hilarious.
I love that. That's just hilarious. And we hadn't seen Crone in a while.
It's been a long time.
I don't recall giving Crone a hard time since, Gardens, when we're trying to pet the dog. It's like, she's not a dog, but she's disguised looking like a dog, and the guy's trying to pet her or something like that. It
was one of the counselors, the hawk nose. What was his name?
Yes, it's the dead one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the dead one. It's the one that Rallick Nom killed, isn't it?
Yes. I forget what his name was. And then finally, Crone giving Brood a hard time about losing his temper as a final as she got out of the tent. That was great.
As she hops hurriedly out of the tent as he stops after her. I love it.
It reminded me a lot of
good stuff.
When Trotz walked into the Bridge Burners camp and everybody was cheering and then somebody gave a raspberry and he went after him. Similar type feel.
Oh, yeah. That's that kind of, yeah. That's exactly that feel. Oh, get out of here.
Yeah. Don't make me get up over there.
Yeah.
All right, great job tonight, Billy.
Hey, man, really good job, dude.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
Just a good episode. I love all the info as we ratchet everything up a notch, and I can't wait to see all the forces, the Malazans, the Panions, the Captains, the Grey Swords all getting together and meeting up for getting it on. But because this is going to be the biggest thing we've seen so far, but I really hurt for seeing the Maib drag us through her sadness. I want her to feel better so we can get on and get to this war and be happy about our war. Come on. We got to win here. We need to be in a good morale for this.
Well, I am eager to get to the action. We know there's going to be some casualties, so I'm also a bit hesitant.
Yeah, this is true.
There's no way you're getting out of this war with everybody intact. There's just not a possibility.
Someone's dying. Someone's dying. Yeah. Just a question of how important are they to me personally?
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
We'll see y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we'd really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.